Hi, it's Lady Horror here with more tales of the dark and scary. I'm going to be talking about real life encounters, haunted locations, and all those things that go bump in the middle of the night and frighten us. So there is a viewer advisory on my channel. I do not want to scare the little ones. So anyway, take care. If you happen to enjoy my stories, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and subscribe. And do not forget to sign up for those notifications, because I don't want to have to send any evil little spirit out there to remind you about that in the middle of the night. I will be uploading new videos once or twice a week. Who knows, maybe even more, because we all know I eat, breathe, and live horror. Anyway, let's get on to our story. This tale features 2 Hollywood Britneys, 1 haunted Hollywood Hills mansion, and 2 very mysterious deaths. We begin with the first tragedy, the shocking death of Brittany Murphy. Now, you probably know Britney mostly from her movies like Clueless, Girl Interrupted, and probably most famously that movie 8 Mile. It seems that to her friends and her family, everybody that knew Britney, she was just a delight. I couldn't see where anybody had anything mean to say about her. They referred to her as kind, loving, bubbly. In fact, they referred to her as the life of the party, even though Britney wasn't known for partying. In fact, she rarely drank alcohol, and there's no record of anybody having ever seen her do illegal drugs. Sadly and tragically, Britney died at the very young age of 32 in 2009. She passed away in her Hollywood Hills mansion. She purchased this home that was located on Rising Glen Road that sits right up above the Sunset Strip. She purchased it fully furnished in 2003 from our second Hollywood Britney Spears. It was a sprawling mansion, 8,000 square feet, and gosh, the master bedroom was 2,000 square feet all on its own. Now, she lived there with her husband, Simon Monjack, and her mother, Sharon, for just short of 6 years before her death in 2009. So what happened to Britney? Well, we could start with the fact that it seemed that she had had some flu-like symptoms for several days before her death. But let's delve deeper. What really happened that morning of December 20th, 2009, when Britney died? It seems that there was a power outage in their entire neighborhood, and somewhere around 3 a.m. the power came back on, and Britney told her husband she was going out on the patio to get some fresh air. Now, Simon noticed while she was out there, she was just gasping for breath. She couldn't get a deep breath. She was struggling and just not feeling well at all. But eventually, he got a little bit worried about her. He called Sharon up. He wanted her opinion. He wanted her help. So Sharon eventually came up to the master bedroom. And when she did, Britney looked at her and said, "Mom, I think I'm dying. I can't breathe. I'm not feeling well. Mom, I love you." Now, at that point in time, Sharon takes Britney into the master bathroom. We don't really know what they were doing or what was happening, but somewhere between 7:30 and 8 a.m., I mean, come on, this is like 5 hours after Britney saying she can't get her breath and can't breathe. But 5 hours later, Sharon calls Simon and says, "I need your help. You need to come in here quickly." So anyway, Simon goes into the master bathroom. Britney is unresponsive, and Sharon's hysterical. I mean, her daughter appears to be dying, if not already dead. So Simon grabs Britney, he takes her and he puts her in the shower, and he runs as cold of water as he can get on her. He's trying to revive her. He's shaking her. He's doing everything he can, while Sharon finally calls 911. I don't know about you folks, but I do know if I had a loved one who was struggling to breathe, told me they thought they were dying, I would have been on the phone with 911 at 3 a.m., not 8 a.m. The Los Angeles Fire Department responded. And when they walked in and found Britney, she was lying on the master bathroom floor. She was soaking wet. They drug her out of the shower. She was soaking wet. And they tried to revive her. They did CPR on her. They did everything they could, and nothing worked. Finally, they transported her to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where unfortunately Britney was declared dead. Around 6 weeks later, in February of 2010, the coroner's assistant chief, Ed Winter, made a statement, and he told everyone that Britney had died of complications from untreated pneumonia and severe anemia. Now, for those of you who don't know what anemia really is, it's where you don't have enough healthy red blood cells in your body to carry oxygen to all the tissues in your body. Also, he said she had a drug intoxication that included both prescription medications and over-the-counter medicines, such as painkillers and cold medicine. There were no illegal drugs in Britney's system. While this may have been the coroner's findings, there was a lot going on with Britney. You know, she was incredibly underweight. I mean, very underweight. And in fact, the coroner's office said that for somebody to develop the type of anemia that Britney had and get it to the extent that Britney had, she was not eating. He said she hadn't been eating for a long time, was simply not eating. Now, along her road to stardom, Britney steadily lost weight. After her first movie, Clueless, friends noticed that she started dropping the pounds, and they actually became rather concerned for it and did talk to her about it. But she denied having an eating disorder. She said everything was fine, and unfortunately, oftentimes with people with eating disorders, they can't see it in themselves, and they're just in complete denial over it. There was a lot of speculation also going on about Britney's relationship with her husband, Simon. After they got married, friends reported that Simon took away Britney's cell phone, that she wasn't allowed to leave the house without him, and also that if somebody important in Britney's life called, such as her agent or a film producer, anybody, she was not just given the phone. They had to describe what they were calling to talk to her about, and Simon would then decide whether or not they could have that conversation with her. And they're very confident that Simon was sitting right beside her while she had any conversations. Rumors also allege that Simon put a lot of pressure on Britney about her body and her weight. In fact, he even suggested she have plastic surgery to alter the way her body looked. After her marriage, friends described Britney as changing. They said, you know, she grew very withdrawn, very sad. In fact, they describe her as her eyes having sunk back in the back of her head, looking like death itself. They even said that she was so weak, she got Bambi legs, where, you know, skinny little legs that couldn't hold her up. She couldn't walk by herself and could barely stand by herself. It is also speculated, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it's been said that maybe medical help was withheld from Britney in a period of time leading up to her passing away. In fact, the coroner's office said that Britney had been sick for some time, and in her condition, had she gone to a doctor or a hospital, they would have insisted on emergency treatment for her right then and right there. The coroner also went on to say that he believes Britney had pneumonia for at least up to 2 weeks before she passed away. And that there's no doctor, had they seen her, there's no doctor that wouldn't have given her treatment. And had she received treatment, Britney probably would have lived. She would have been very treatable. So that's death number 1. Let's move on to death number 2 and get ready for this one. So 5 months after Brittany Murphy dies, her husband Simon Monjack, who was 40 years old at the time, passes away in the same mansion, in the same master bathroom, and with the same physical condition that Britney had. He had untreated pneumonia and severe anemia. I mean, what are the chances of that happening? One theory that has repeatedly been tossed around is that there was mold in the house. And as we've all heard, you know, the terrible things can happen to you. You can get sick from mold in your home. But the thing is, in 2010, the medical examiner's office had the home tested, and there was no mold found. I mean, they did tests and everything they could. There was no mold. However, Simon's mother, Linda Monjack, insisted that there was mold in the home, and she just would not let this story die. In fact, she kept repeating herself that mold killed them all the way up to 2013. But what's really bizarre and interesting is that Linda talks about her son had hallucinations, severe hallucinations, and that he was telling her, you know, Mom, I literally can see things crawling out of my skin. I mean, how bizarre is that? This is not normal. This is creepy as heck. So let's move on down. Let's talk about this house and its role in all of this. Both Britney Spears and Brittany Murphy told people there was something really off about this home. When Britney Spears was living in the home, she was also dating Justin Timberlake at the time, which is just an interesting little side fact. But she claims to have had otherworldly experiences within the house. These encounters got to be too much for her, and eventually Britney fled the house and never went back. Spears' former makeup artist and friend Julianne Kay talks about a story where Britney had had a wild partying weekend and she was now feeling run down and tired. She called Julianne up and she said, hey, you know, I know you have this friend that does Reiki healing. For those of you that don't know, Reiki is an energy healing. It gets all the bad juju energy out and brings in the good vibes. So anyway, Britney called and asked Julianne if she'd reach out to her friend and ask him to come up to the house and give her a treatment, which he did. He drove up there, did the healing treatment, and then left. Well, shortly after, I don't know if it was days or hours afterwards, but Britney calls Julianne and she says, I don't know what happened, but this guy opened a spirit portal and spirits are coming into my house and they're bad spirits. She reported seeing a male and a female ghost, spirits, whatever, in the house, and that they both appeared to be mentally deranged, very disturbed, and that they were trying to hurt her. She said they were trying to push her down the stairs and doing other stuff. It eventually got so bad for Britney that she fled to her car, she drove to the Casa del Mar Hotel, and she never went back home. Now, this is a woman who walked away from a multi-million-dollar mansion, left her makeup, her clothes. I'm sure she had awards and all sorts of stuff in this home, but she fled and never went back. Julianne goes on to say that Britney called her and said, you're going to say I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. I know what I saw and I know what I felt. So Britney Spears puts the mansion up for sale. And who do you think the buyer is? But unsuspecting Brittany Murphy. Now, Brittany Murphy, as far as anyone knows, never claimed to have seen spirits in the house, But she hated this home, and she told everyone that it was unlucky, she was uncomfortable, she just hated the Rising Glen home. Shortly after her death, Simon told the Hollywood Reporter that Britney would do anything to avoid going back home. In fact, he says that when they'd be out and they'd be driving back on the Sunset Strip to go home, he'd look over at her and she'd be almost in tears. She'd be hugging herself, sitting in the passenger seat. Her anxiety, like you could just see it coming up off of her. And she'd look at him and she'd say, "Simon, please, can't we just rent a room at the Beverly Hills Hotel and stay there?" Simon would say to her, "Honey, be realistic. We own this 10,000 square foot home and we're going to stay there. We're going to live in it." What I find really sad is that it's been said that Britney was wanting to start a family, but she hated this house so badly that there was just no way she was going to get pregnant and have a child and bring this child to live in this place that she couldn't stand. And it's even reported that Simon and Britney and her mom Sharon had been talking about uprooting themselves and moving to New York strictly for the purpose that Britney and Simon would start a family. Now, Simon had also shared that there was one room in the house where Britney felt comfortable, and it was her safe haven, and that was the master bathroom. And he says that if Britney were at home, she was often locked up in the bathroom. He could hear her in there singing to herself, flipping through magazines. He thought she wrote poetry in there, but what bothered him the most was, he said sometimes when he'd come in, he could see her and she'd be this close to the mirror and just staring at her reflection. Not talking, not putting on makeup, nothing. He says she would spend hours just staring at her reflection in the mirror. Now, the idea that this house is haunted has come under a lot of scrutiny and criticism. There are those who do unfortunately bring up Britney Spears' mental health issues, and they claim that the symptoms that Spears were having was maybe the beginning of her mental health issues. However, one key point is that Brittany Murphy was never accused of having mental health issues, and she had much the same experience that in some way that Britney Spears did. They both thought this home was off. Brittany Murphy, while she lived there, underwent a dramatic physical change. She lost a dramatic amount of weight. Her eyes sunk into her head. She withdrew. She was depressed and sad. Now, if you read and follow stories of hauntings, you'll know that things like this happen to the victims of hauntings. While we may never know the real answers to what happened here, when Sharon finally, after Britney's death, when Sharon finally was ready to sell the home, she struggled to find a buyer. In fact, after she did find a buyer and sold the house, she had a whopping loss. I mean, she sold it for more than $1 million less than what they bought it for years earlier. And over the time, the house has been owned by multiple people. But in 2013, it was finally torn down. The new buyers built a new, sprawling, contemporary home. In fact, the new home bears no resemblance to the former incarnation. So I have some pretty deep thoughts on this story, and I want to put some questions out there for you. I'd love it if you'd respond and tell me what your thoughts are on everything I've been telling you about today. So question number 1 is, do you think that Britney Spears was having mental health issues, or do you think what happened was actually some evil force in the house? My second thought is this, and this is the most troubling one of all. Why didn't anybody insist on medical help for Brittany Murphy? Even further in advance of that night, on December 20th when she passed away. Why didn't they insist on help? I can't help but wonder if Brittany Murphy wouldn't be with us today had anybody done that. And finally, if the property was haunted and the house was torn down, does that mean that the evil forces remain on the property, and now that there's a new home, are those evil forces in the new home? As far as I know, there's been no reports of that happening, but if the house was razed and there were evil spirits living there, and now the house is no longer there, does that mean we rid the world of all of these evil presences? Or are they just out there somewhere? Anyway, I would really love to know what you think about this. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I hope you'll be back for the next one. Take care.